Part 68. Online games, only I can see hidden information. Author, Minjai Old Thief. Chapter 671. Regardless of whether Yebai wants it or not, he has firmly established himself as the Lord of Demons. Lucifer's heart levitated, floated in front of Yebai, and merged with the devil's origin. As long as you master this heart, you can kill Lucifer at any time. At the same time, the devil's origin will continue to merge with the heart until finally, it is completely integrated. However, all this can only be done with Yebai's acquiescence. As the true master of the devil's origin, Yebai manipulates this process at will. After doing all this, Yebai put away the devil's origin and looked at Lucifer. Stop kneeling and get up. Compared with before, Lucifer's appearance has not changed much, and he is still the best among demons. It's just that there are 2 more 2-meter-long legs. Standing up, he is nearly 4 meters tall. Yebai raised his head slightly and looked at the other party, somewhat speechless. Before he could speak, Lucifer slowly shrank, finally stopping at 1.7 meters, 10 centimeters shorter than Yebai. Today's Yebai has Lucifer on his left and Gabriel on his right. He has more face when he goes out. After getting rid of Lucifer, there is actually nothing to do on the 40th floor. Yebai, however, was not in a hurry to clear the settlement and started hanging out on the 40th floor. He asked casually. Back then, when my elder brother had a decisive battle with the supreme demon god, were you in the supreme abyss? Although I don't have much dealings with Shura. However, Lucifer had some knowledge of Shura's style. The eldest brother Shura calls him should be a nightmare. Lucifer did not dare to be negligent and replied respectfully. I was less than level 1000, and followed the demon ancestor into the abyss of power, and then wandered around. That battle, I was relatively far away. Lucifer didn't say a word. Those who were close were all dead. The decisive battle between the most powerful human being, Nightmare, and the most powerful demon. Even if they are both level 1000, they are not qualified to watch the battle. Yebai changed the subject and suddenly mentioned another matter. Yingju, do you know? Lucifer was stunned for a moment, nodded and said, I know. Huo Tianwang once told me that Master Zhu lied to me about 2 things. Not only Huo Tianwang said this, but Xiaoao also said it. Yebai has always been worried about it and wanted to know what the 2 things were. Since Lucifer was a witness back then, maybe she knew more about Xueju. Thump. Before Yebai could ask any questions, Lucifer's knees softened and he knelt down. Yebai frowned, feeling unhappy. How come the bones of this demon clan are softer than those of the vampire clan? You knelt down before you even asked a question? Soon, Yebai realized something was wrong. Because Gabriel also looked respectful, looked forward, and bowed. Yebai followed his gaze. He saw a Taoist. The Taoist was wearing a white cloud Taoist robe with a faint butterfly printed on it. There is no one else in the world who dares to dress up like this and enter and exit the Eternal Tower at will. Yebai. Brother, are you here? When Yebai said hello, he confused GE and brother together in an attempt to get away with it. Xiaoao nodded. Coming. Yebai thought for a while and asked. Is something wrong? Xiaoao, as always, cherishes words like gold. His body is still on the 99th level. What came here was just the incarnation of a white cloud, just like before. However, this time he chose the human form instead of the butterfly. This is rare. In the past, Xiaoao who appeared in the Eternal Tower usually looked like a butterfly. In fact, for Xiaoao, the butterfly may be much more convenient than the human form. After all, butterflies can fly. After nodding, Xiaoao pointed in a certain direction and said, I can leave. Yebai immediately understood what Xiaoao meant. Is there a way to leave this world and go to the upper world? Yabai actually experienced it once when he was on the 30th floor. He never expected that there would be one on the 40th floor. At that time, when the existence of the upper world tempted Yabai, he told Yabai that he had 3 chances in total. They are, 30th floor, 60th floor, and 90th floor. Who would have thought that just after passing the 10th floor, Yabai would meet him again? This also confirmed Yabai's previous conjecture. He thought deeply and said, "So, every 10 floors actually hides a passage to the upper world. These 9 passages are prepared for the 9 eternal tribes. They fall into reincarnation because block the passage." Xiaoao directly announced the answer. The so-called reincarnation is a trap. In order to trap the powerful men of the 9 eternal tribes so that they cannot ascend to the upper world. In the original design of the Eternal Tower, each clan occupies 10 floors. The level of layers has nothing to do with strength. Each clan can cultivate future generations of geniuses in its own territory. If there are genius seeds, after reaching level 990, they will be sent to the 90th to 100th floors for training. After passing the level, they will return to their clan's holy land and ascend to the upper world through a special passage. But because the appearance of the most powerful demon god disrupted all plans, only then did Yabai's various experiences when he broke through the border. When the nightmare breaks through, you may not know the truth, and even if you know it, you will be powerless but unable to do anything. When it comes to the second brother Wuhan, things are even simpler. Pick up the sword and chop, chop, chop. The most powerful people are carefree and have the ability to see through and break through, but they find it boring and disdain to do it. It was precisely because of this that it took 100 years for these reincarnations to be broken by Shura. After figuring out the cause and effect, a new doubt appeared in Yabai's mind. He has dealt with existences beyond the upper realm. Last time, the third brother only showed up afterwards and thanked Yabai. Is there any change this time? It's worth the third brother's special trip to see Yabai. Xiaoao saw Yabai's doubts and said, "You can go." Yabai. Where did this come from? I feel like I didn't explain it clearly. Xiaoao turned sideways, looked at Shura, and even gave up half of his body to him. After 2 sentences, Yabai fell into silence, expressionless. Good. As for how to choose, it all depends on Shura himself. Feeling Xiaoao's eyes falling on him, Yabai shook his head and spoke very calmly. Gabriel glanced at Yabai secretly, curious about what decision he would make. But after thinking about it, Xiaoao felt that he should stay here, at least watch Shura make his choice. If he chooses to leave, as I said, he will be immortal and unrestrained. If Shura agrees to go to the upper world, everything related to him can be taken to the upper world. He felt that maybe Shura would be embarrassed to leave if he was here. It's just weird. When one person attains enlightenment, chickens and dogs ascend to heaven. He agreed. Yabai's expression did not change. Yabai frowned and didn't answer. Xiaoao still pointed in that direction and said a few more words. However, Lucifer knew that he had no place to speak here. I do not go. In the past, Xiaoao would never do such boring things. You can choose to go to the upper world and you won't die. Rather, it was meant for someone hiding behind the passage. For the most powerful human race, there is no temptation. This was not said to Yabai. Leave the mark of the strongest chi, I want to use it. Lucifer, who was kneeling on the ground, frantically hoped that Shura would nod. Xiaoao turned his back to Yabai, looked in the direction of the upper realm passage, and spoke again. The upper world has an indescribable attraction for the strong men who survived in ancient times. This means that as long as he chooses to leave, he can have something that others cannot get after a lifetime of hard work. At the end of the fog, Yabai's familiar voice came. The 2 parties had dealt with each other on the 30th floor. He himself couldn't tell clearly. These 8 words are enough to make Yabai become the top being in the upper world. Immortal, immortal, unfettered, unfettered. However, this time, there was a bit of bitterness in his voice as he reluctantly replied. As for why we should do it? She trained hard, planned the origin of the devil, and reached level 1000, wasn't it just to go to the upper world? Online games, only I can see hidden information. Author, Minjai Old Thief. Chapter 672. I do not go. Shura's words gave the answer. This is Yabai's choice. Xiaoao was not surprised by this result. No questions asked, no nonsense. He simply nodded and said casually. Good. Xiaoao looked forward, his eyes sinking slightly. Deep in the mist, there was a gaze that slowly receded. Even a world away, the existence hiding behind the door is quite afraid of Xiaoao. Among the most powerful people of the 3 generations before and after the human race, what he fears most is Xiaoao. Without prying eyes, the passage to the upper world on this level is completely closed, and there will be no changes. There is no need for Xiaoao to stay here. Come see me after you break through. After saying that, the white clouds dissipated and the figure disappeared. Yabegui pointed towards the direction where the figure disappeared, nodded, and said. Good. The leaves on the surface are white, the ancient well has no ripples, and is as plain as water. What he actually said in his heart was, great. On the entire 40th floor, the fog was swept away and the sky was clear. The demon, who was kneeling on the ground, finally breathed a sigh of relief. Apart from being frightened, she was also surprised and happy. The cycle of reincarnation on the 40th floor has been broken. Once she successfully reaches level 1000, she can leave this world smoothly. Although, Shura did not choose to go to the upper world. But Lucifer's future is bright. In Lucifer's view, the reason Shura refused was because Shura didn't understand what he was rejecting. Going to the upper world is a great gift. The most powerful person in the human race, Xiaoao, said the 8 characters. Immortal, immortal, unfettered, unfettered. The weight of these 8 words is enough to make Shura become the top existence in the upper world. After Xiaoao left, Yabai did not rush to clear the level. Instead, he moved out the tables, chairs, and benches, sat on the chairs, and fell into deep thought. After pondering for a long time, Yabai came to his senses and summoned Cain and Dracula together. He asked a question. What is the upper world? Dracula shook his head directly. How could he know this? Among the 4 people present, he was the worst in terms of strength, and he was also the worst in terms of qualifications. The identity that Dracula can best show off is that he is the male favorite of the blood ancestor. No shame in mentioning it. The other 3 were either powerful bosses in ancient times, or the most powerful seeds of a clan. Take out anyone and it can kill Dracula instantly. Cain took the topic and said. There will be no catastrophe in the upper world. The catastrophe of world destruction? Seeing Yabai's doubts, Cain explained. I don't know exactly what happened. All you need to know is that this world will be destroyed every once in a while. In the catastrophe of annihilation, even the strongest cannot survive. As for the upper realm being able to survive the catastrophe of destruction, many people want to go there and just want to take refuge. A question mark appeared above Yabai's head. Why does this catastrophe of world destruction sound so much like the restart of the universe? The Big Bang? Etc. Why is this related to the Big Bang again? What was originally a fantasy suddenly changed to science fiction? The style of painting has changed. Too many slots but no mouth. That's right. Lucifer opened his mouth and continued. The last time the world was destroyed, only the creatures in the Eternal Tower survived. Even the Eternal Tower flew in the void for who knows how long before it found the blue star. Obviously, Lucifer knows more about the upper realm. After all, she is one of the people who truly has the strength and qualifications to have access to the inside story. Lucifer's status in the demon clan is comparable to that of Cain in the vampire clan. But Cain had problems with his own character, and he never got along with the blood ancestor. The blood ancestor just sent him to build the tower and let him work as a coolie. Cain knew nothing about these inside stories, and his eyes were completely dark. The calamity of world destruction. Yabai muttered, wanting to know how long it would take before the world is destroyed. I don't make it. Yabai. What's the use of my eyes? Generally speaking, when you encounter a problem that cannot be solved, there is only one solution. Yabai took out a small book and wrote it down in it, and asked his third brother later. Everyone. After a brief silence, Lucifer added. All creatures in the upper world are immortal, and the promises made by the upper world cannot be reneged on. Yabai frowned, he didn't understand why Lucifer believed such childish words. It is true. Lucifer stuck to his point of view. There is a very terrifying rule in the upper world that governs everything. Promises cannot be broken and there will be no death. She said this just to let Shura know what she was rejecting. As well as, if there is a next time, she hopes Shura will consider it more. The other three looked at Lucifer at the same time and sighed in unison. Why? The unlucky child is going to suffer. Maybe, everyone who deals with Shura must go through this process. In fact, if you think about it carefully, it's quite understandable. If you look at Shura as an enemy, you will find that this guy has no bottom line and is extremely shameless. How despicable. But when the perspective switches to Shura's allies, you will find that Shura has many bottom lines. Most of the bottom lines are very flexible. But there is a small bottom line, and it really is the bottom line. Dracula suffered this loss, Cain suffered it, Gujin suffered it. In other words, Gabriel didn't suffer much. That's because Gabriel didn't want to take advantage of Shura. Every time the old man Gabriel is summoned, he doesn't talk nonsense, he just raises his fists and does it. No money, just work. Such employees have nothing to say. Yabai glanced at Lucifer coldly and said nothing more. Everyone knows it except Lucifer. She's done. Massive bleeding. Dracula raised two fingers in a hidden place, and Cain shook his head slightly. He felt that it should be more than twice. Dracula crossed his index fingers and Cain nodded. Bet 10 drops of blood. Bet on it. The life of a strong vampire in the sheepfold is so simple and boring. Not in the mood to deal with Lucifer for the time being, Yabai looked at Gabriel and found that the other party was particularly silent. Gabriel shook his head. I have nothing to say now. Good. Yabai also has a very good attitude towards employees like Gabriel. After all, without spending a penny, the combat power is still the strongest, and there is no fault at all. Gabriel is capable, he really dares to attack the gods. When you have something to say, come back to me. After a simple discussion, Yabai still needs to do one last thing. The eternal core crystal was summoned, and Yabai put his palm on it. Settlement. The light in the core crystal flickered, but no results were obtained immediately. After a while, a colorful light flew out and landed on Yabai. At the same time, the entire human race in the Eternal Tower heard a familiar announcement. Congratulations to player Shura for reaching the 40th level SSSSS level evaluation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, only I can see hidden information. Author, Minjaya Old Thief. Chapter 673. Simply clear the 5's level. This was not the first time Yabai had experienced this. Once alive, twice familiar. This is the fourth time for him and he is numb. The moment they leave the Eternal Tower, everyone else automatically returns to Yebai's exclusive space. And Yebai didn't stay in the Eternal Core City for too long. Today's wolf lair will no longer refresh Shuemeng. No dog would go to the wolf den without Shuemeng. Even if Yebai goes, he can only collect some money for drinks and no big money. What's more, Yebai had already arranged that Gujin would go to the wolf lair every day to purchase goods. Yebai no longer needs to earn this kind of drink money himself. The most powerful seed of the human race must have some cards. Without Shuemeng, the wolf's nest's attraction to Yebai was greatly reduced. He simply skipped the traditional arts, returned directly to the Eternal Forest, and went straight to the Eternal Tower. A white cloud has been waiting for a long time. After saluting, Yebai sat on the white cloud. It feels like flying. Sit on the white clouds and take off on the spot. Yebai always felt a bit like a somersault cloud, fulfilling his childhood dream. I'll do it another day. Yebai arrived at the 99th floor with just one thought. After my chat friend Shura came online, he still greeted me every day. Good evening. Good. After the daily greetings, Yebai asked about things related to the disaster of annihilation. This was his biggest gain from this trip to the tower. Precisely because he knew more, Yebai naturally had more doubts. It's true. Xiaoao did not deny it. Facts are facts and there is no need to deny them. Yebai asked further. How long until the catastrophe of the world is over? According to Yebai's idea, this kind of thing is usually far away from me. Cain and his companions built the Eternal Tower back then, and the time it took was calculated in units of thousands or 10,000 years. It has only been 100 years since the Eternal Tower came to the human race. The catastrophe of annihilation will take 70,000 to 80,000 years, right? Even if Wanner doesn't have 8,000 years, it's okay to leave 300 to 400 years for the human race, right? If you want to defeat the most powerful demon, you need the most powerful seeds of the 9th generation. The human race has reached Shura's generation, which is the 4th generation. There will be 5 generations to come, and if one generation lasts for 36 years, it will take close to 200 years. Moreover, this is the minimum standard. If there is any problem in the inheritance of the strongest human race, this time will be extended. 200 years is indeed a long time for a person's lifespan. But in the struggle between the human race and the most powerful demon god, 200 years is just a blink of an eye. It is really a bit of a dream to defeat the most powerful enemy in the world in a day or two. I didn't count. Xiaoao thought for a while and added. Let me calculate. For Xiaoao, he doesn't have to think about the catastrophe of the world at all. There are 2 types of catastrophes. One is cyclical, irreversible, and all-round. This kind of catastrophe will destroy the entire universe and there will be no escape. But it's easy to avoid. Just stay home. Xiaoao lives on the 99th floor of the Eternal Tower, a shelter specially built for the disaster of annihilation. The second type of catastrophe is even simpler. The most powerful demon god appears. Xiaoao faces this every day. If Xiaoao hadn't been there, it would have happened long ago. So, Xiaoao has never calculated when the first catastrophe of annihilation will come. There is no need to do boring things. However, since Shura asked, it was not a big deal, so Xiaoao casually helped with the calculations. No problem. Listening to Xiaoao's words, Yebai nodded and fell into silence. In his impression, fortune-telling requires extreme concentration and cannot be disturbed by the outside world. So, Shura, who is sitting on the white clouds, is particularly well behaved. You go on. Obviously, Xiaoao's fortune-telling was different from Yebai's understanding. Dual tasking may be just a routine operation for Xiaoao. Yabai asked some more questions related to the upper world. Xiaoao shook his head. I don't know much about the upper world. He has been watching the human world for these 100 years. Looking down at the human world, it is full of boredom. Naturally, there is no chance to look at the upper bound. And Xiaoao has no interest in the upper world. The most powerful people in the human race throughout the ages have no interest in that poor place. The reason why Yabai is interested in the upper world is he was wondering if he could get some wool from there. After returning in vain, Yabai changed the topic and talked about the current situation of Master Zhu and the others. When Xuemeng and Yingsan were overlooking the supreme abyss, I saw the figures of Yingzhu, Huo Tianwang, and Bad Qi. This news naturally spread back to the rear of the human race. The confidentiality level of the information is extremely high. But Yabai's information authority was originally unique. This matter was related to Yingzhu, so naturally it was delivered to Yabai immediately. Regarding the matter of Master Zhu, Yabai basically told it and Xiaoao listened. By the way, brother, the two things that Master Zhu lied to me about. Today's Yabai is no longer the restrained young man. I already dare to call me brother openly. Anyway, it wasn't once or twice, Xiaoao didn't object, so Yabai shamelessly kept shouting. As long as he is not embarrassed, others will be embarrassed. Yabai has always been worried about these two things and wants to figure out what they are. As soon as he asked the question, Yabai regretted it. He really wanted to ask, if he came back in a second, would he meet the conditions? Before, Yabai had asked Xiaoao how long it would take for the world to be destroyed. Familiar freedom, familiar taste. Even if he only goes for a second, he will risk his life. This is obviously unacceptable to Yabai. Now, there is an answer. The Taoist's voice came from the tower, but there was no wave in the ancient well. Yabai. The maelstrom, Shura, have broken through. Why? He clearly knew the answer. Xiaoao said calmly. The Taoist in the tower suddenly spoke. Without. Forget it. Now that Xiaoao had promised, Yabai put his heart back in his stomach. Yabai's survival rate in the void whirlpool was really a bit too low. Xiaoao shook his head. I will tell you when you come back from the void vortex. 37 years later. Xiaoao replied, I need to do the math. He supported Yabai to go to the void vortex. Really? This time, Xiaoao actually changed his words. Boring. And have you been? When he increases the survival rate to 100%, and then goes into the maelstrom, when he comes back, not only will his strength increase dramatically, but he will also know what Xiaoju lied to him. This is an inappropriate script for a cool male protagonist. Yabai asked curiously. In the past, Xiaoao avoided talking about these two things. Xiaoao's words not only gave Yabai reassurance, but also expressed another level of attitude. Yabai didn't expect that. After thinking about it carefully, Yabai gave up this bold idea. The bug here in Xiaoao is almost life-threatening. Online games, only I can see hidden information. Author, Minjai Old Thief. Chapter 674. 37 years? A question mark appeared above Yabai's head. This is so different from what was planned. The disaster of annihilation launched a shameless sneak attack. 37 years was enough time for Yabai to become the strongest, and he could even have 30 more years. Then what? Gone. Will all humans move to the Eternal Tower? When the most powerful demon god appears, will there be another catastrophe of destruction? No matter how you look at it, it's a dead end. Yabai never expected that. Xiaoao actually calculated such a result. If I had known earlier, it wouldn't have mattered. Originally it was just one person's mess. It's better now, everyone has no future. After hearing this conclusion, Ye Bai did not question it. Xiaoao fortune telling is always accurate. Moreover, such a large context and direction are difficult to manipulate. Xiaoao disdains lying. Third brother's reliability has always been high in Ye Bai's mind. Without doubting the third brother, Ye Bai tried to struggle and then asked. Then, to kill the most powerful demon, one must be the most powerful of the 9th generation. Ye Bai is the 4th generation. In 37 years, there can be at most one more generation, that is, 5 generations. It's still 4 generations away, so it's hard to figure it out. Xiaoao's answer remains the same. It has to be the 9th generation. Ye Bai still doesn't give up. Is there a way to eliminate the most powerful demon within 37 years? Have. This time, Xiaoao's answer shocked Ye Bai. Any drama? Before Ye Bai could continue to ask, Xiaoao spoke again. I have no idea. Xiaoao has long said that there is no omniscient and omnipotent existence in the world, at least not him. But just knowing this information is enough for Ye Bai. 37 years. As long as Ye Bai awakens Tan Yan 9 times, he should be able to find a way to solve it. But there is another problem here. Even if Ye Bai can speed up the birth of the strongest human race, he also needs to face a cruel fate. While the 5th generation of powerful seeds are growing, someone needs to face the powerful demon god. Just like what Xiaoao did when Shuro was growing up. Of course Ye Bai is not afraid of intimidation. But who is the most powerful demon? That's the guy who really dares to flip the table. Don't be afraid of intimidation at all, just take action when it's time to take action. Nightmare, Wuhan, the 2 wars, the strongest demon made no mistakes. In fact, Ye Bai understood the power of the strongest human race. I also understand more and more about the terror of the most powerful demon. In Ye Bai's generation, it was the same. 3 months later, the battle between Xiaoao and the most powerful demon is inevitable. Kyude, where can I get together with Jude? Ye Bai rubbed his face and felt a headache. You can survive if you go to the upper world. Obviously, Xiaoao also saw Ye Bai's thoughts. This is not a matter of living or not. Ye Bai sighed. He asked himself, he is not a person who is greedy for life and afraid of death. He just wants to survive. What's wrong with him? Ye Bai has no intention of choosing the option of going to the upper world, at least for now. Alone, deserted, without even a sheep, life is boring. As for the future, who can say for sure what will happen next? If you have the opportunity to change your home, it's not impossible. But Ye Bai also knew that what lay before him, and even the human race, was a road destined to be full of thorns. When I think of thorns, I think of breaking thorns. When I think of breaking thorns, I think of breaking wealth. Ye Bai broke his guard. Tired? Inside the tower, a yawn could be heard. Obviously, fortune telling is also very costly for Xiaoao. You go to bed early, I'll go back and be quiet first. Ye Bai felt that he needed to be quiet. The best quiet space is, of course, your own exclusive space. After returning to the exclusive space, Ye Bai thought for a long time before digesting the shock caused by the previous conversation. What should be done? Faced with the sudden catastrophe of annihilation, Ye Bai was stumped. It was rare for Danian to be serious and he gave a reasonable suggestion. Why not learn from our predecessors? Believe in the wisdom of the ancients. Predecessors, what predecessors? Ye Bai immediately understood what Tan Yan was talking about. During the last catastrophe of world destruction, Eternal gathered the power of the 9 Eternal clans and finally built the Eternal Tower. This is their way of overcoming the calamity. This is also a method that Ye Bai can refer to. Build a tower yourself? Yabai not only needs to absorb the wisdom of the ancients, but also find ways to improve it. After thinking for a moment, Yabai suddenly spoke. I'm going to build a tower. When these words were spoken, everyone around them was shocked. What did you say? Cain really has a psychological shadow. The thing he regretted most in his life was building the pagoda. Finally, when we arrived at Shura, we still wanted to build a tower. It's never over. That's almost it. Ta ta ta. You can't get along with the tower, right? Why do the two of them like building towers so much? Do you play tower defense games? Except for Cain, everyone else's reaction was weird. Dracula whispered. Isn't this guy the eternal reincarnation? Could it be said that the end of the world is not far away? The last tower was called the Eternal Tower. The ninth generation of the most powerful human race, after killing the most powerful demon, entered the Shura Tower to suppress the calamity of annihilation. I am going to use this tower to suppress the calamity of annihilation. Shura's behavior is also a big lie. She even knew who Eternal was and what his current state was. Master Fool frowned, looked at Yabai, and asked. Everyone is smart and knows Shura very well. His eyes were firm and he said word by word. Lucifer shook his head slightly and denied. Master Fool was curious about what Shura's plan was. I will guard 8 of them. It sounds like that's the case. Moreover, most of the things Shura wants to do will succeed. Then what? The same thought appeared in everyone's mind. On the other hand, Cain from the vampire clan, he didn't know anything about it when asked, but he just knew how to eat, eat, eat. Obviously, Lucifer knew more. Today I wasted time watching MSI, and I felt very happy, so I'll show you a little bit. I have seen eternity, and it is definitely not Shura. This tower doesn't need to be too high. It only needs 9 floors in total. By then, all 9 generations of the strongest human beings will be able to enter the tower. Shura suddenly proposed to build a tower. 4 updates tomorrow. Only Gabriel was thoughtful. Yabai only had a sketch in his mind, which roughly described Shura Tower? Shura Low Tower? Shura would not mention pagoda repairing, which was time-consuming, laborious, and expensive, for no reason. You have to do something to build a tower, right? As the middle third clan, the demon clan is indeed not something that the lower third clan like the blood clan can compete with. After briefly describing it, Yabai paused. What is this time called? This guy is greedy for life and afraid of death. The last time the world was destroyed, a big liar came out and fooled everyone into building a tower. Online games, only I can see hidden information. Author, Minjai Old Thief. Chapter 675. Shura guards 8 of them. These words sound quite irritating at first glance. Master Fool was startled and reacted immediately. That's not right. This guy is Shura. How could Shura do such a serious thing? When something goes wrong, there must be a monster. There must be some detail that is not quite right and I have overlooked it. Gabriel, who had been eating melon silently, spoke in confusion and asked. What about the other strongest human beings? Yabai replied confidently. Guard the first floor. Everyone. He is still the same boy as before, nothing has changed. When it comes to go, no one can beat Yabai. The most powerful men of the 9 generations guard against the catastrophe of annihilation. The results of it? Yashiro defends the first level, and the start is on nightmare difficulty. Just imagine, a level 1 trumpet breaks into the first floor, confident and ready to fight mobs and upgrade. When you come up, you will face directly, Nightmare and Wuhan and Xiaoao and other 5 generations of the strongest. Even if the most powerful demon god comes, he must kneel down. If it starts like this, there are still people who can get through the first level. It doesn't seem to mean much whether the Shura in the back guards or not. This is not like Shura guarding the 8th level, and Shura making great achievements. This is Shura showing off. Yabai also has something to say. What level are the other strongest people at? What level is he, Shura? Can he defend the first level? You don't have this ability, you know. Yabai is confident and confident. Look at the Eternal Tower, the design is outrageous. Chun Chun lets people fight monsters and upgrade. Doesn't this make it more difficult for yourself? In Yabai's view, if possible, place the boss directly on the first floor. Not giving the enemy any time and space to develop is the most reasonable arrangement. There is a saying, pure passerby, reasonable guest, neither fan nor black. From a strategic point of view, there is indeed nothing wrong with Shura's arrangement. The one with the problem is Shura. Regarding the idea of Shura, Master Fool has only 2 words to comment. He. She sneered. Xiaoxiu, I would like to know, if you arrange this, aren't you afraid that your second brother will come to chat with you in the middle of the night? Don't do anything wrong, don't be afraid of seeing Wu Wu. You are so brave. Yabai always struck hard against the demons. How dare you use the sword of Wuhan, the strongest human being, to threaten Shura, the next generation of the strongest human being? Do you dare to scare me? I'm warning you, I'm really scared. In any case, Yabai currently has such a vague idea. But for this idea, he can take some practical actions. Even if it costs money. After all, the calamity of annihilation is directly fatal. What's the point of spending some money? Spend some money. Yabai asks sincerely. Idiot, if I change my SSS level armor into a tower, will it be difficult? It's not difficult. Master Fool also responded sincerely. Your SSS level armor was originally designed to be a mobile bunker. Changing it to a tower is nothing more than changing the skin. Oh, the workload can actually be reduced. The generous Yabai didn't care about the cynicism in her words, and made another entry for Master Fool in his small ledger. Yabai felt that he needed to seek professional advice. He looked at Kane and continued to ask. What suggestions do you have for building the tower? Kane. My advice is, don't fix it. Regarding the matter of building the tower, Kane's feelings can be described in one word. Pain. It hurts so much. After listening to Kane's suggestion, Yabai nodded with satisfaction. Since you took the initiative to join in building the pagoda, I can't refuse you. Okay, I'll count on you. Kane? If I hadn't asked for it from you, I would have insisted on letting you see why the river of blood is so red today. With Kane, a professional pagoda builder, Yabai believed that at least working as a coolie would be no problem. Come on, everyone can speak freely. Say whatever you want. Don't be restrained. Yabai felt that this matter was of great importance, and it would be difficult for him to handle it alone. Why not have a brainstorm first to see what bad ideas everyone has, and then he can improve them? Dracula still had nothing to say, and Lucifer hesitated to speak. On the contrary, it was Gabriel who took the initiative and said, to build a tower, you need to use materials from the upper world. Master Fool nodded and added, the SSS level equipment I can help you build will be a tower base, or a prototype. After you put the designated upper realm materials into the equipment will automatically absorb and digest them, perfecting the tower, and ultimately achieving your goal. Let's talk about it, let's make trouble again. When it came down to serious business, no one continued to joke about it. The catastrophe of world destruction affects everyone. It is related to the fate of everyone present. Basically, they all experienced the last catastrophe of the world. Without the Eternal Tower, they would be dead. Yabai interrupted him directly. Yabai asked further. When it comes to the continuation of the Blood Clan, Kane is very serious. Kane is still laying the groundwork for his friends. There are only two known ways to survive. Lucifer wished that all the other demons would die, preferably even the Lord of Demons. This friend of mine is cautious by nature and is prepared for danger in times of peace. After hearing this familiar opening statement, everyone understood it instantly. You also know that when the Eternal Tower was built, the vampires were actually very powerful. No one tried to expose Cain. All eyes were on Cain. Gabriel only does his job. Yabai frowned. The vampire clan had only built 15 floors. So Cain, who was responsible for building the tower, might not have much left even if he hid the materials secretly. The Eternal Tower ascends to the upper realm. This kind of greed for ink is normal. Okay, no matter what your friend does, it is very reasonable, and we will not be biased against you because of what your friend has done. Under the premise that Shura clearly refused to ascend to the upper world. For everyone present, if they want to survive, building a tower is an inevitable choice. When my friend first built the tower, he hid some materials secretly. Even the strongest people from all races cannot resist the calamity of world destruction with their own strength. But Cain looked at him and spoke to him. This was Cain's last dignity. 15th floor. Among everyone present, Cain was the only one with a strong sense of racial honor and racial responsibility. Like Gabriel and Lucifer, for various reasons, they don't care much about race. Ahem, I have a friend. Get straight to the point. Just to be honest, how much information does your friend have secretly hidden? So, another very important issue is involved here, the continuation of race. Therefore, a total of 15 floors were divided among the vampires, and finally the vampires completed the task within a limited time. 1 point, how much is it? Without any embarrassment, Cain confessed. Yabai said angrily. Cain cleared his throat. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, only I can see hidden information. Author, Minjai Old Thief. Chapter 676. 15th floor. A question mark appeared above everyone's head. You were responsible for building the 15-story tower, and you took away the materials for the 15-story tower. Did you rub this tower with your hands using air? Cain is fully responsible for the emergence of the most powerful demon. Cain knew that he had to give a reasonable explanation today. Otherwise, I can't even pass the Shura level alone. Moreover, building a 15-story pagoda to covet the 15th floor, something that is beyond common sense, usually only happens to Shura. Cain doesn't want everyone to look at him with the label of Vajura transformation in the future. He must clear his name. This friend of mine was sent twice to repair the tower. Cain organized his language and explained briefly. The first time I brought a full budget, but the blood ancestor died. Why didn't I just? That friend of mine came back to support me in competing for the position of the blood ancestor. Ahem, a little accident happened. When I was building the tower for the second time, I reported the budget again. That silly girl, I mean, the blood ancestor didn't care about this small amount of money. Everyone. Ginger is still spicy. The blood ancestor of the previous generation sent Cain to build a tower, allowing Cain to avoid death. The last generation of blood ancestors sent Cain to repair the tower and approved an extra budget. This leads to a strange result. The vampire's budget is doubled when building the Eternal Tower. Cain asked himself whether he was a conscientious contractor and said that if he built a 15-story tower, he would just have 15 stories. There can be no less layer, and no more layer. Get paid and do a job. Even if you receive 2 wages, you can only do 1 job. After listening to Cain's sophistry, everyone's eyes changed subtly when they looked at him. A vampire is a vampire. Even with Shurazuyu in front of him, Cain can always come up with something new. Dracula was heartbroken. With a guy like you in a high position in our vampire clan, how can we not be defeated? How can we not be destroyed? Kane? The vampire in the audience who is least qualified to accuse Kane is Dracula, the traitor. Kane even took a little something and put it into his pocket. He considers himself still a vampire. If the situation changes, Kane is willing to donate all his wealth to revitalize the vampire family. What the hell is Dracula? Every day when I open my eyes, I have to make a decision to betray the blood ancestor. Do you have the nerve to talk about me? Dracula covered his heart with bitterness on his face. You deserve to be reduced to this situation. Yabai frowned, feeling as if he had also been scolded. I didn't care about the internal fighting between the two vampires. Yabai and Kane confirmed. Where did you hide these materials? This amount of material is not a small amount. How many God of War merits are worth the materials that can build a 15-story eternal tower? Isn't Kane's money equal to Yabai's money? The privacy letter gave Yabai several addresses, all of which were in the eternal tower. However, the floors are relatively high. However, this did not trouble Yabai. He turned around and asked Xuemeng to run a few times and try to find a way to get the things out first. Yabai's life principles. It has always been, 10 birds in the forest is worse than 10 birds in the hand. Now that you know where the treasure is hidden, it is the right way to let your own people dig it out first. As for dividing the spoils, we'll discuss that later. Anyway, Yabai has never suffered a loss when it comes to dividing the spoils. Yabai was just happy when Master Fool poured a basin of cold water on him. Don't be happy too early. Master Fool is the most professional in forging, and his vision is particularly vicious. She pointedly pointed out. If the tower you want to build is to withstand the catastrophe of world destruction, it must be as high as the Eternal Tower in terms of grade. This means that your expenses will only be more than the Eternal Tower, not less. The Eternal Tower is essentially a defensive refuge. It just needs to be able to withstand the catastrophe of annihilation. And Yabai's idea is even more exaggerated than the Eternal Tower, to directly suppress the catastrophe of annihilation and end it once and for all. If it really works. For a moment, Master Fool was a little moved. Yabai frowned and asked humbly. In your opinion, what we have now, Kane's 15 layers of materials, what else do I need to build this tower? Yabai can coordinate the manpower, material resources, time, etc. needed to build the tower. But before starting, he needed to know how much it would cost. The most troublesome thing is that all the materials for building the tower need to come from the upper world. Where can Yabai go to gather wool from the upper world? I'm going to do the math on this. No one doubts the professionalism of Master Fool. In addition, she was born in the middle of the 12th lunar month, so she helped the human race not just once or twice. When she heard that Shuro was going to build a tower, she was more active than anyone else. Leave professional matters to professionals. While Master Fool was busy, Yabai looked at everyone again and asked for their opinions. With the example of Kane in front of him, the atmosphere in the venue became much more lively. Me. Lilith spoke enthusiastically. She was hanging in the Tianxia pavilion, swaying in the wind, holding up the pig's trotters and asked. When the tower is completed, can you hang me up on it? I will feel safer. Kane, Dracula. Why do you keep this guy, for the new year? After all, naming is a trivial matter. No. Lucifer looked fearful and said cautiously. Please find a chair and sit down. Gabriel also spoke at the right time. Yabai followed the good example and just sat on the chair, waiting for the Fool Master to announce the answer. At this time, Master Fool has almost calculated the result. Yabai kept Lucifer's words in mind and will dig the mountain back when he has the opportunity in the future. Yabai asked again. 2 pavilions of all things. But Xueju didn't like it himself, and even changed the name of the human king's sword to the heavenly king's sword for this reason. We are generally called the human king. Master Fool couldn't help but laugh when he looked at the calculation results. That's okay. Human King Shweju, this is the name given to Shweju by the strong foreigners. With the collective efforts of everyone, Yebai gained a lot of useful information. If you have the rotten pig around, your luck will be much better. Yebai immediately thought of something and asked. Borrowed by Wuhan. Gabriel shook his head. There is a mountain peak in the supreme abyss, and the entire mountain fell from the upper realm. Master Fool protracted his voice and said slowly. She was afraid that Shura wouldn't be able to accept it after hearing this. Just look at his care for Xuemeng and you will understand. According to your plan and preliminary calculations, it will probably take. Some materials from the angel race in the Eternal Tower also come from the upper world. I don't know the specific source. Yebai's respect for his seniors is unquestionable. Yebai thought for a while and agreed to Lilith's request. It's so damn shameful to be a vampire. Mountain Peak. Lucifer spoke at this time. That mountain peak where Senior Shweju is. Any more ideas? Yebai's eyes lit up. Do you still have it in your hands now? Yebai shook his head and said nothing more. Online games, only I can see hidden information. Author, Minjai Old Thief. Chapter 677. 2 Wanwu Pavilions. After hearing this answer, Yebai's head buzzed, went blank, and lost the ability to think. This price is too high? Otherwise, you'd better kill me. Ask Yebai to spend the money from 2 pavilions of all things to build a tower. It makes him feel worse than killing him. It is precisely because of this that Master Fool is so active. Anything that can make Shura suffer. She wants to help out? Can you make a youth version? Yebai tried to reduce demand in order to achieve the effect of budget reduction. Build the first floor to be solid, and just use newspapers to fool around with the next 8 floors. Everyone. Asking Shura for money is really more uncomfortable than killing him. What's more, when Master Fool opens his mouth, he wants the pavilion of all things. This one is even more heavyweight. Master Fool understands Shura's humanity very well. That's how I originally designed it. Yebai. Create a layer to suppress the catastrophe of destruction and accommodate 8 generations of the strongest. Yebai needs to spend all his money to build 2 Wanwu pavilions. I need to slow down. Yebai took a few deep breaths and turned slightly pale. The golden light of Shura Sea dimmed a bit. Obviously, the source of greed has been touched. When you are free, you can ask Zhang Xiaoyao. Master Fool threw the design drawing and budget to Yebai and complained. Your high expenditure is completely nonsense in design. Putting the 8th generation of the strongest on the first floor will consume too many resources. According to the idea of the Fool Master. If the strongest of each generation of the human race kept 1 floor, the structure of the entire tower would be more reasonable. The materials required will also be greatly reduced. No, this matter is not negotiable. Yebai's attitude was very firm. If one person is guarding the first floor, wouldn't he be the gourd boy to save Grandpa? Collectively, free of charge. It would be more fair to put everyone together and block them on the first floor. And one person is on one level, so it's not easy to rank them. Who will guard the first floor? Is it sending the strongest among the strongest, or Su Qingfeng among the strongest? If you think about it carefully, there are pitfalls everywhere. If it doesn't work out, we'll start a fight. It's not as good as Yebai's previous plan. The key is time. Yebai let out a long breath, his brows filled with worry. Only 37 years. Even though Yebai had been a powerful person for 36 years, he only had 1 year left for the 5th generation of powerful seeds. Calculating this, even if Yebai drags Xuemeng to death, he still won't be able to earn 2 Wanwu pavilions. As we all know, the Wanwu pavilion was not built in a day. It's useless to think too much. Yabai put away all the information, and the matter came to an end for the time being. For him, what he needs to do most right now is to increase his strength. Wait for him to digest the origin of greed in the past 2 days. Then he changed jobs, officially entered the 600 level threshold, and awakened Danyan for the 4th time. After everything is ready, take a trip to the void vortex. The thinking is clear and the action is full. Yabai immediately became involved with the source of greed, and was not affected by the previous one at all. The Fool Master, who was watching from the sidelines, sat on a chair. This chair is placed under the Emperor Tianxia. While she was eating melon seeds, her other hand was not idle, pushing Lilith like a swing. Higher, higher. Lilith displays bad snacks, it's another bad day. Eternal Tower. On the 99th floor, a new visitor was welcomed. Lan Tiankai, who was breaking through the barrier, suddenly received a message from Xiaoao and rushed over. Is something wrong? Lan Tiankai also knows that the current situation is delicate, and if the human race is not careful, it may be a situation that is beyond redemption. Since Shura appeared in this world, these days have become more and more difficult every day. Xiaoao took a short nap and felt better. He briefly told Lan Tiankai about the catastrophe of world destruction. As a member of the human think tank, of course, it goes without saying much about Lao Ian's authority and responsibilities. After hearing the news, he didn't show too much worry, but took it for granted. We have considered this kind of thing and made corresponding filings. The human race on the entire blue star is said to be more or less. It is also a way for everyone to move into the Eternal Tower. There is actually a way out to survive. In the past 100 years, the human race has put aside other things and concentrated on being the enemy of the abyss. They have made a whole warehouse of escape records. If things really come to a worst-case scenario, Lan Tiankai's 800-year-old face is filled with ravines and vicissitudes of life. What do we need to do? Xiaoao shook his head. I don't know. He has not calculated or thought about it, so he does not know. From Xiaoao's point of view, the road ahead is for the human race to walk on their own, and the rest of the future is for the human race to do it themselves. He had been the strongest man for 36 years, fought in the last battle for the human race, paid back Wuhan's debt, and settled everything. So, he didn't think about the future. Because Xiaoao doesn't think he has a future. Lan Lao's expression still didn't change much, and he turned to ask. Can you survive the final battle? This time, Mr. Lan rarely used you. Usually, when talking to Xiaoao, he would address him more as you. In front of Mr. Lan, Xiaoao was regarded as a half-disciple and held the courtesy of a junior. Lan Lao, the you, is not asking a junior of his own, but a question to Xiaoao, the strongest human being. Are you sure you'll survive? Xiaoao shook his head again. Disaster. The conversation suddenly fell into silence. Purity is the norm on the 99th floor. Xiaoao lives on the 99th floor, all he wants is purity. In this world, no one can stop him, not even Yingju. We need, no, it should be said that the human race needs to know whether the most powerful Shura will kill the 5th generation of the most powerful seeds 36 years later. Lan Lao said the question he wanted to ask. But this question will also determine what the human race will be like in the next 37 years. In fact, it has always been in a very subtle state. Nothing is static in this world. You once promised Xueju that you would tell the fortunes of the human race 3 times. Xiaoao doesn't do this just because he finds it boring. I believe in Shura, and I also believe in the Yabai I know. Since he came to this world, every word he said and everything he did on recordable occasions has been analyzed by us. We may even know better than Yebai. Shura. No need to calculate. Xueju used it once and Yingju used it once. Can only say. Will Shura choose to kill the fifth generation of the most powerful seeds? Lan Lao was very relieved about Yebai. If the most powerful person in the human race turns dark, it may drag the entire human race into the abyss, making the situation completely irreversible. After a while, Lan Lao spoke again. The human race and the strongest of the human race. People change, and so do ideas. Lan Lao, who had always been calm and composed, was inevitably a little nervous at this moment. Fortune plays tricks on people. Lan Lao's question was also a question for all the powerful people in the human race. 36 years. Xiaoao picked up the teacup in front of him, took a sip, and said calmly. He won't. He has been engaged in scientific research all his life, but in the end, he has to find someone to tell fortunes on this kind of thing. His voice was very slow and deep. Now, I am using my last chance on behalf of the human race. Please help me calculate the answer to this question. The strongest of the human race has protected the human race for hundreds of years. To give the simplest example. If Xiaoao wants to kill Shura. But who can say for certain who will be the most powerful Shura 36 years later? After a long preparation. The more rational a person is, the less he will place his hope on emotion. Online games, only I can see hidden information. Author, Minjai Old Thief. Chapter 678. He won't. These three words come from different people and carry different weights. Xiaoao is already the most important existence in the world. Lan Lao believed what he said. Regarding the catastrophe of annihilation 37 years later. Lan Lao asked for some more information. To kill the most powerful demon, it will take 9 generations of the most powerful human beings. Lan Lao knew about this. Other races can be called the strongest as long as they reach level 1000. The human race is different. The most powerful person in the human race refers specifically to those who possess SSS level talents and reach level 1000 after 9 awakenings. There is one more thing to add to the peak state of the strongest human race, mastering the complete mark of the strongest. When Yebai was on the 40th floor, Xiaoao made a special trip. In addition to telling Yebai that he could leave, he also had another purpose. If Shura chooses to leave, Xiaoao will recover the most powerful mark. Lan Lao turned to ask. Can people who have awakened their talents now become the strongest? Xiaoao's answer was also very straightforward. Cannot. SSS level talents are weakened into SS level talents. This process is irreversible. In the century-old history of the human race, there have been 3 such experiences. Xuemeng counts once and Lan Tiankai counts once. Their SS level talents are strong enough and they are invincible among SS level players. But they cannot touch the most powerful realm in this life. That is to say, if the human race wants to cultivate the 5th generation of the strongest, they must wait until 36 years later and then train a new person. This is a hard condition, defined by eternal rules and cannot be changed. After receiving the reply, Lan Tiankai remained expressionless and just nodded slightly. The conversation also came to an end. Actually, the calamity of annihilation would have a great impact on Yebai, making him feel panicked and need to do something. After all, 36 years later, if nothing else happens, Yebai will be the most powerful man at that time and need to face the catastrophe. On the contrary, people of Lan Lao's generation will not have any fluctuations when hearing this kind of news. In their eyes, the real catastrophe of annihilation had already begun the moment the abyss opened. There is no need to wait until 37 years later. 100 years ago, the sky fell. The human race has endured hardships for hundreds of years and managed to survive to this day with nothing more than 2 words. Self-improvement. In a dedicated space. Yabai did not return to Blue Star, but began to study the origin of greed. With this research, he lost track of time. Yabai has never felt like this before. Dedicate yourself to learning, absorbing, and improving endlessly, greedily refusing to let go of any detail. The more greedy Yabai is, the stronger his greed is. While he was studying the origin of greed, there are also many melon-eating people around. These guys know nothing about the origin of greed, let alone grasp the origin of greed. But most of them have studied the origin, except Dracula. Seeing Shura's appearance, Kane couldn't help but sigh. Is this thing really not the origin of Shura's companionship? Master Fool shook his head and sighed. Poor dragon race's most powerful seed. It is clearly its accompanying origin, but it has turned into the appearance of Shura. Where does this make sense? Lucifer was even more shocked. Isn't this degree of compatibility too high? She never thought that Shura could be in tune with the devil and greedy origins at the same time. Shura has always been able to do nothing about human affairs. The idiot master was quietly eating melon seeds on the side, throwing Lilith to play from time to time. Lilith also had a great time setting up bad snacks. She has accepted the setting of her pet. In addition to eating and sleeping, exercising occasionally helps digestion and allows you to eat better. Understand the life of Lucky Piggy. One day after Yabai entered the Shura Sea, Master Fool finally took action. She stood up and planned to hit Shura with a hammer. Later, Master Fool thinks this is not polite. So, she changed to a more respectable approach. The Fool Master took out a golden leaf. The moment she took it out, everyone backed away and kept their distance from her. Even Lilith was taken away by Dracula. Master Fool threw the golden leaves forward and threw them into the Shura Sea. Soon, a cry of surprise came from the depths of the Shura Sea. Whose gold? If I find it, it's mine. Fuck. The Shura Sea rolled instantly, and the golden leaves flew out and returned to the hands of the Fool Master. Shura also rushed out with an angry look on his face. You're really playing dirty, aren't you? This golden leaf is very precious and should be left to Master Fool. Master Fool snorted coldly and said disdainfully. If you want to die, continue to study the origin of greed. I want to see whether in the end it is you who dominates greed, or whether greed dominates you. People like Yabai, who are highly compatible with the origin, are easily affected by the origin. The stronger the power, the greater the influence. It was Yabai's first time studying the origin of greed. If he devoted himself to it for too long, things could easily go wrong. Master Fool woke him up, not deliberately obstructing him, but raising Yabai's hand. Yabai rolled his eyes and said nothing more. In fact, Yabai knew it well. According to the prompts of the Eye of Insight, Yabai could still persist for about 30 minutes. However, the Fool Master underestimated Yabai. She probably didn't expect Shura to play to such an extreme. The process of researching the origin of greed was interrupted, and Yabai did not continue. He needs some time to digest what he has learned during this period. Yabai glanced at the time. It was past 6 o'clock. He was so involved in studying the origin of greed that he even forgot about breaking into the tower. He checked his transmitter and found many unread messages. These days, due to the college entrance examination, Mordu University is also on holiday, so Yabai does not need to go back to school. Among all the news about Xuemeng was the most eye-catching. Before, Yabai asked Kane about the hiding places of many supplies and directly sent all this information to Xuemeng. Below the 90th floor, it is obviously the most reliable to let Xuemeng do the work. It only took a day for Xuemeng to reply. I'm exhausted. I've been to all the places you posted. There's something in just one place. Xuemeng sent a list, and the supplies in it were less than 1/10 of Yabai's expectations. Yabai. Where is my wool? Why is it that the wool is bald even before shaving? Kane also looked confused. No, he hid things in these places back then. He couldn't be wrong. I swear on the blood ancestor's life that what I tell is the truth. Lilith launched a sudden thrust and hit Kane's heel. You swear, what's the point of swearing on my sister's life? The scene was once very chaotic. Looking at the message from Xuemeng, Ye Bai fell into deep thought. What on earth is going on? The first abyss. Today, the peak kendo duo is playing checkers. Lan Bangxian casually jumped a chess piece over the entire chessboard and asked. Xuemeng is very busy today. That kid seems to have fooled him again. Wilhen also thinks about it sometimes. How could such a smart person have such a stupid adopted son? It shouldn't be. Are you not making any progress just by following your father? There's news. Lan Bangxian received a list and placed it next to the chessboard. Hey, isn't this what you snatched back then? Xuemeng's trip was in vain today. Wilhen glanced at the list and said calmly. The swordsman thing is considered a loan, not a robbery. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, only I can see hidden information. Author, Minjai Old Thief. Chapter 679. Ye Bai couldn't figure out who had taken all the things away. In desperation, he could only put this debt on Xuemeng's head. Xuemeng? Tell me, shepherd, isn't he bullying an honest person? Xuemeng drank a large gulp of wine, filled with righteous indignation, and danced. Certainly. He didn't dare to say such words in front of Shura. He still has the courage to criticize Shura behind his back, and it's very bold. Xuemeng was in the wolf lair at the moment. He took the time to have a drink with Yeju and made some remarks about shepherding. Yeju is a very good listener. He usually only listens and does not speak. What's even better is that after Yeju listens, he will report the relevant information to the Dream Master. That is Xuemeng's adoptive father nightmare. Xuemeng believed that as long as he continued to output, his adoptive father's nightmare would one day seek justice for him. With the authorization of Xuemeng. These words returned to Ye Bai's ears intact. Yeju did not add any extraneous details, but simply told the Dream Master that Xuemeng was exploited by the devil again. Ye Bai, who was in the exclusive space, became angry on the spot after hearing this. This demon is bullying people too much. This demon is a little too arrogant. Dare you touch my wool? I don't take Shura seriously enough to agree. Now, Ye Bai can use the elimination method to determine that the demon that affects Xuemeng is not Lucifer. Since it's not Lucifer, the ancestor of demons is also dead. So who is it? Ye Bai was puzzled. He used his insightful eyes to get the answer, but got an astonishing result. This matter involves the strongest, the result cannot be displayed. Hiss. Ye Bai took a breath, he didn't expect Xuemeng to be so involved. He immediately found Lucifer and questioned him carefully. A powerful demon associated with a powerful being. Lucifer frowned and took a long time to give an answer. If you say so, then there is only one possibility, the bloodline of the demon ancestor. Okay. 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 Ye Bai said 3 good words in a row, obviously furious. The ancestor of demons, he was so dishonest even after being killed by a single man. Killing 1,000 times is not enough. Ye Bai swore that as long as the other party fell into his hands, there would be no good results. The goblin housekeeper on the side repeatedly advised. Boss, being angry is harmful to your health. Being angry is harmful to your body. Gu Jin finally figured it out. Xuemeng really has a connection with his elders. Shuro was so difficult to get along with, and he was determined to cover Xuemeng. Ye Bai, whose anger dissipated a little, glanced at the time. Today is the last day of the college entrance examination. Ye Bai remembered that he promised Zhao Lin to support him. As we all know, Ye Bai is a person who pays great attention to his own credibility. Now that I have said it, that means, do what you say. Since he had nothing to do now, Ye Bai simply returned to Blue Star and found the examination room where Zhao Lin was. Come on, try to make 0 mistakes. Ye Bai patted Zhao Lin on the shoulder and encouraged. If it doesn't work out, let's come back next year to pursue our dreams. Zhao Lin rolled his eyes, smiled and cursed, get out. An enchanting woman not far behind Ye Bai had a very wonderful expression at this time. Lucifer never expected that someone would dare to talk to Shura like this. Aren't you afraid of death? A white pig she was holding hummed a few words. Dracula, pig language. My master has always been approachable. Lucifer shook his head slightly, she didn't think so. She is more inclined to think that this is Shura's hypocritical mask. Dracula sneered, you know nothing, you are not a human being. Lucifer. It turns out that this is called approachability. It's only good for the human race, but you can exploit other races to death, right? Lucifer was reborn not long ago, and his own fighting strength was also good. Ye Bai asked her to follow him, mainly to adapt to the environment. Outside the examination room, waiting for Zhao Lin to take the last exam, Ye Bai yawned. Why are you so boring? Someone do something. Ye Bai was very restless and wanted to catch a few more sheep. Just when Ye Bai was thinking this, he received a message from Xiao Zial, the undercover gold medalist in the abyss. Xiao Zial, boss, second master Ying is making a lot of noise in the 8th abyss. Why don't you send someone to take a look? Ye Bai raised his eyebrows, but before he could reply, the second message came. Xiao Zial was afraid that Ye Bai would not understand the seriousness of the matter, so he added. Second Master Ying is playing himself to death. Ye Bai. Is the second master playing such a big role? Not long after Xiao Zial's alarm came, a similar message came from Shadow 4. It seems that the second master Ying has broken the sky. Ye Bai casually made an excuse, talked to a teacher he knew well, and left in a hurry. Continuously activating the teleportation array, 1 minute later, Ye Bai arrived outside the Eternal Forest. Shadow 1 and Shadow 4 have been waiting here for a long time. Fourth Master. Stop talking nonsense, what's the situation and how to solve it? It only took Ye Bai a minute to understand the current situation. Second Master Ying failed to assassinate the 8th demon god. At this time, he was chased by the 8th demon god. The 8th demon god promised that he will not stop until death. Ye Bai simply ignored the last sentence. As for solutions, the shadow has a bitter look on all sides. Now that the demon god's overall strength has skyrocketed, we really can't spare any manpower, so I can only make a trip. Due to the departure of King Huo Tian and Yingju, the top combat power of the human race in Tongtian God of War was cut off. Even if there is no God of War, generally speaking, the demon god would not kill the top human beings. A strong person like Lan Bangxian has a very tough background. The problem lies here. Shadow 2 is nominally covered by Shadow 9. Ying I said confidently. Cain was adjusting his puppet, Gabriel closed his eyes to rest, and even Gu Jin finished counting all the accounts and showed them to Shura. Ye Bai looked around and found that there was only one choice left. Everyone in the entire exclusive space is busy. But Yingju was not there after all. He was a demon and had no strong support. He was hunted by the demon and was unable to survive alone for a while. You guys are really talented. This sudden change makes the new Lucifer very uncomfortable. Ying I couldn't move again. At the same time, Ye Bai sent a shopping list to Wanwu Pavilion to check his skills, use various scrolls and potions. White light flashed, and he returned to his own exclusive space. 10%. Alert, the survival rate this time is 99.99%. More importantly, deduct all Yang Er's salary for the next 30 years. A golden light flashed, and in the blink of an eye, Shura returned. Shura's actions seemed to sound a silent alarm. How sure are you that you can save Yang Er? Lucifer was very puzzled. Looking at Yebai, who was busy pouring potions. Xuemeng and the third master were too far away. When they arrived, the second master's table was all gone. Yebai didn't waste any time and smashed all the equipment he usually used. Let Cage go. It's just that after saving Yang Er, I will become the 8th demon god. Fourth master needs to think clearly. Yebai. Dracula, who was grinding his teeth, took time out and explained to Lucifer. The idiot master used a few hammers to repair everything that needed to be repaired. After saying that, in a dedicated space. Fool. As if in an instant, everyone switched from mess mode to roll king mode. What is Shura doing? Yebai gritted his teeth and said viciously. My master is ready to risk his life. Yebai looked at Yang Yi and asked. Online games, only I can see hidden information. Author, Minjai Old Thief. Chapter 680. The Eighth Abyss. On this day, the wind was calm and the sun was beautiful, with no clouds in the sky. The second master Ying decided to assassinate a demon god playing tricks. It's not his fault. At the beginning, the order he received from Shura was to come to the Eighth Abyss to make money. Who has money? The 8th demon god is rich. Want it directly at your door? The other party will definitely not give it. It would be better to kill the 8th demon god and take away all the money. The second master Ying formulated a seamless plan. Broken down specifically, there are 3 steps. The first step, dive into the 8th abyss. Step 2, approach the 8th demon god. Step 3, kill the 8th demon god. The first 2 steps of this plan were implemented very smoothly. It wasn't until the third step that a little accident happened. To put it simply, the 8th demon is not dead. After being seriously injured by Yang Er, Poseidon used his anger to teach Yang Er how to behave. In the face of the absolute gap in realm and strength, Master Ying has no power to fight back. He is not Ying 1, nor Ying 3, nor Ying 9. It makes sense that you can't beat a level 999 Poseidon. Among the shadows, second Master Ying's combat power ranks 4th. If Shura is given some more time to develop, the second Master Ying will be ranked 5th. After the assassination mission failed, Master Ying began to run for his life. The furious Poseidon naturally refused to let him go, sealing off the 8th abyss, and even threatened to fight Shadow 2 until death. I'm going to die, I'm going to die. The bad woman turned on the storm crying mode, hiding in the shadows, trembling. Fine. The second master ran away like crazy, but he still thought of appeasing the bad woman. Don't panic, I still have a backup plan. Obviously. On the road of being a human being, bad men go further than bad women. He had long thought that this mission would be very dangerous and he needed to leave himself a chance to survive. The second Master Ying is very confident about the cards he has left behind. Did you ask the strongest to save us? Facing the furious Poseidon, only the strongest can protect them. The second Master Ying announced his trump card. Fourth Master will definitely come to save us. Bad woman. She never expected that the bad man's trump card was Shura. It's like landlord, your teammate has worked hard to hide a card, and you hope to rely on him to make a comeback. He hit a 3. Xiaoji-san. The bad woman's strong voice trembled slightly, and she cried out in despair. Fourth Master, he is afraid of death. Putting aside Shura's ability. Just because Shura was afraid of death, he was destined not to wade into this muddy water. Hold on, we can survive. Yang Er was particularly confident and said in a deep voice. I left an IOU for fourth master. Bad woman. Suddenly, she felt like she saw the glimmer of hope again. As we all know, Shura is greedy for life and afraid of death. But Shura is even more greedy for money. With the IOU here, Shura might be able to risk his life a little bit to save him. Just when the bad woman feels that things have turned around, Second Master Ying silently added, I wrote your name on the IOU, you won't mind, right? Go to hell, bad thing. Just as Ying Er was being chased by Poseidon. Outside the eighth abyss, two figures stood. The former, wearing a dragon robe, is like a human emperor, whose majesty cannot be offended. The flattering villain who followed him was more like a royal eunuch. Seeing the second Master Ying running around in the abyss, Xiao Ziyao was extremely anxious. His forehead was covered with fine sweat and he said with a smile, Leader, why don't we save him? The true identity of second Master Ying is not a secret to Xiao Ziyao. Shadow 2, the son of the fifth demon. It's inappropriate for Poseidon to kill his son in front of the fifth demon god. Save. The fifth demon sneered and said disdainfully. The good things I can't get can be obtained so easily by this traitor, why should I save him? Besides, after Lao Ba kills my traitorous son, I will kill Lao Ba again, and Wuhan's son will come and kill me again. He has arranged himself clearly. Kill three birds with one stone. Xiao Ziyao persuaded bravely. Fathers don't have such a blessing yet, how can their children enjoy it in advance? From the perspective of admonishment, Deputy Hierarch Xiao's words were very level. He is worthy of being the leader of the demon cult, with perfect emotional intelligence and perfect speaking skills. The fifth demon glanced at him. You are an interesting person. Xiao Ziyao did not dare to breathe and added. Even if he's funny, he's still an interesting little guy. Accompanying you is like accompanying a tiger. Being with the fifth demon god is much harder than being with a tiger. This is a complete lunatic. He was still driven crazy by the strongest human race. You know, when Xiao Ziyao first took office, there was a bet in the fifth abyss on how long he could live. The boldest guess is only 7 days. Who would have thought that Xiao Ziyao would live to this day in one breath, exceeding the expectations of all monsters? You are not young. The corners of the fifth devil's mouth were slightly raised, his eyes were deep, and he said to the point. The human race wants to resurrect Xueju, and you are a part of it. Is this still a small thing? Xiao Ziyao stiffened slightly, forced a smile, shook his head and said. I don't understand what you are saying. When he was still in his mother's womb, the fortune teller pointed at the shadow and said, this kid will always pretend to be confused. How big is the matter of resurrecting Xueju? Xiao Ziyao believes that every strong person in the human race is willing to risk his life for this matter. Even Shura. Under this premise, Xiao Ziyao did not dare to make any mistakes. If you want me to save this traitor, that's fine. But I have a condition. The fifth demon suddenly spoke and asked an irrelevant question. It is said that back then, the kid Lian Liankan was overthrown by his own son's words and joined the demon cult. Since you are Lian Liankan's shadow, you should know what this sentence is, right? When the fifth demon god mentioned this matter, Xiao Ziao's eyes changed. No fear, no tension, no pretense of anything before. Instead, it was as calm as lake water. I can't say. Xiao Ziao knew very well. If he says this, he will face consequences that are more terrifying than death. Even if the fifth demon god wanted to kill him, Xiao Ziao would admit it. Oh! Looking at Xiao Ziao's reaction, the fifth demon god realized that this seemed to be a good opportunity to commit suicide. If you don't do anything, you'd be really sorry for the fifth demon god's reputation as a death-seeking little expert. Just as he was preparing to take the next step, a portal opened above the eighth abyss. A black-robed mage rushed out, holding a staff and roaring. Poseidon. Stop. The fifth demon god, Xiao Ziyao? Why is this voice a female? Could it be that, Shura is actually a woman? Has everyone been deceived by Shura all this time? At this time, the second Master Ying, who was running away in a panic, shouted to the shadow of the black-robed mage. His voice was full of emotion, without a trace of technique. Fourth Master. Save me.